I want to start with you. Let me play another clip from that interview between Reverend Sharpton and Vivek Ramaswamy. But before we do that, I want to warn our viewers that it's riddled with conspiracy theories. Here we go.
The real war I would take on is the war against the administrative state, the shadow government here at home. I think the people who we elect to run the government, once again, ought to be the people who actually run the government, not the cancerous bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. I'll have a 75% headcount reduction for all of the people who weren't elected in Washington, D.C.
Noelle, what do you make of this lingering embrace of conspiracy theories by candidates in your party?
Well, it's, people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. There have been a lot of the lunatic fringe on the Republican side that smoke out these conspiracy theories all the way, from thinking that we have got some underground movement and there's a shadow government, a lot of it associated with, they still think that Obama and some of his cronies are having say in how the government is being run today with Biden. So I think that what that does is that fuels the GOP lunatic fringe part of the Republican Party. That does not fuel the fires of any establishment people that I know. But you've got a lot of these people that I call the lunatic fringe within the Republican Party that seem to really focus in on things that do not matter, like these conspiracy theories, not on lower taxes, less regulations, and the economy. They are absolutely focused on these nutty conspiracy theories. With that said, bravo to Reverend Al and to Vivek for doing this. I think that the leader of the free world, the president of the United States, it's such an important position. And the fact that he came on to a territory where there's not a lot of votes probably for Vivek with, this network. But to come on and have an open and honest dialogue between the two men, bravo to Reverend Al for having him on so we can listen to him, and bravo for Vivek to do it, because that was tough interview.
Well, Fred, Noelle makes a good point. You don't often see these one-on-one interviews from Republican candidates on what they probably see as unfriendly territory, but great questions by Reverend Sharpton that people want to know about. What were your thoughts on what you just heard in that interview?
Well, I agree with Noelle. It was amazing to actually see these two men sit down 20 years after they first sat down, and that was great. And it's good to see point and counterpoint. But unfortunately, there's a good 25 to 35% based on polling of the Republican electorate that really eats up things that people like Vivek say. And so he's competing with that fringe, but that fringe is larger than you'd like for it to be. I don't believe there's more than 50%, but what we see here in Georgia and what we've seen based on, again, polling and electoral results, that you have about a good 25 to 35% of the Republican electorate that really believes these kinds of things. And so you have Vivek who's zeroing in on that and saying, hey, in a multi-candidate field, 7, 8, 10, 12 people, if I can dominate that 25 to 35% of Republican voters, then I stand a really good chance, especially if Donald Trump is not on the ballot. So it's smart politics for him, but it's really tragic for us as a country.